There is a moment recorded long ago in the quiet of a night that no one expected to matter. A man lay down to sleep with a stone beneath his head, running from a brother who wanted him dead, carrying nothing but the dust of the road and the weight of his own mistakes. He was not in a temple. He was not surrounded by priests or singing or any sign that heaven was watching. He was alone in the open country, in the kind of darkness where a person stops pretending and finally admits how tired they are. And it was there, in that exact place of nowhere, that the sky opened. A stairway appeared, reaching from the ground where he lay all the way up into the presence of God. And messengers moved up and down upon it, and a voice spoke over a sleeping man who thought he had been forgotten. When he woke, he said something that I want you to carry with you tonight. He said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." Beloved and chosen one, I need you to hear why I began with that. Because you have been living in your own version of that night. You have been lying down with the weight of something heavy beneath your head, in a season that looks like nowhere, in a stretch of road that feels like running and exhaustion and silence all at once. And somewhere in you, quietly, you have started to believe that this place you are in does not matter, that heaven is busy elsewhere, that the presence of God is reserved for people in brighter rooms than yours. But I came here tonight to tell you what that man learned when he woke. The Lord is in this place. He has been in this place the entire time, and you, like him, simply did not know it yet. Let me tell you how I know I am speaking to the right person. Lately, your dreams have grown sharper, clearer, almost too vivid, as though something is trying to reach you while the noise of the day finally goes quiet. You wake at strange hours, 3 in the morning, and you cannot explain the pull that lifts you out of sleep. You feel a frustration that has no clear name, a sense that you were made for something more than the small loop your days have become. And when you try to explain it to the people around you, the words come out wrong, and they look at you like you are ungrateful. You feel things before they happen. You walk into rooms and sense the temperature of them. You have been carrying a quiet ache that says this is not all there is, and you have been carrying it mostly alone. If even 2 of those things landed in your chest just now, then you are exactly who I was sent to find tonight. Because here is the truth that the world has worked very hard to keep from you. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not too much, and you are not too sensitive. You are an earth angel, placed here on purpose, wrapped in skin and circumstance, sent into a season that was always meant to refine you and never meant to bury you. You are part of a divine plan that did not begin with your struggle and will not end with it. The frustration you feel is not a flaw in you. It is the homing signal of a soul that remembers it was made for more. Heaven has paused everything around you to bring this message to your ears at this exact hour. And that is not an accident, and you are not here by chance. So let me say the thing your spirit has been straining to hear. The season of waiting has not paused, it ended. Before I take you deeper into what this ending truly means for you, I want to pause for just a moment and share something with you. The way a friend stops mid-sentence because something matters too much to skip. There is a discovery from the world of neuroscience that I cannot leave out because it touches the very thing you have been feeling. Researchers who study the brain have found that there is a particular frequency the mind produces in its most awake, most creative, most connected states, and they call it gamma. People who are wired the way you are wired, the ones who feel deeply and sense what others miss, are often born carrying more of this frequency than the average person. But here is the part that will make you sit up. Long seasons of waiting, of grief, of stress and disappointment slowly suppress this frequency over time, dimming the very thing that makes you who you are. There is a neuroscientist named Dr. James Rivers, a man with more than 30 years of research affiliated with the work coming out of the halls of MIT, who built something around this discovery. It is called the Genius Wave, and it asks for only 7 minutes. If you feel something stir in you as I describe it, the link is already waiting for you in the pinned comment below, and you can find it again later in the description. I am not going to rush you toward it. We will come back to this in much greater detail very soon. But I did not want to walk you through everything that is about to unfold without first placing that anchor gently in your hands. Now, let me bring you back to the stairway, because there is more in it for you. The thing about that night in the open country is that the man did nothing to earn the sky opening. He was not praying when it happened. He was not performing or proving or striving. He was simply present, finally still enough, finally honest enough, finally done running for the length of one night, and that is when heaven moved. I tell you this because somewhere inside you there is a belief that you have to fix yourself before God will show up, that you have to become worthy, that the calling on your life is on hold until you finally get it together. Chosen One, release that. The presence did not wait for the man to deserve it. It met him in the dust. It is meeting you in yours. You are an earth angel not because your life looks heavenly, but because the assignment on you is heavenly. The shift you have been sensing, the strange new clarity, the way old things have started to feel hollow and new things have started to whisper, that is not instability. That is the ground moving under a door that is about to open. You have spent so long believing you were stuck that you have not yet recognized that you have actually been positioned. There is a difference, and we will get to it. For now, simply let yourself believe that the same heaven that opened over a sleeping runaway is opening over you, and that you, like him, are standing on holy ground that did not look holy until this very moment. So here is something simple I want to give you, a small practice you can carry into the rest of this night and into tomorrow. I call it the stairway pause, and it has 3 steps that you can do anywhere, in your car, at your kitchen table, lying in your own bed at 3 in the morning. Step 1. Bring to mind something you are grateful did not happen. Not the blessings that came, but the disaster that passed you by. The door that closed and protected you, the road you did not take. Hold that for a breath and let it remind you that you have been guarded even when you felt abandoned. Step 2. Say these words quietly to yourself. I am not late, I am being led, and the timing over my life is not broken. Let that settle the part of you that keeps counting the days. Step 3. Give yourself 7 minutes of silence, just 7. Where you ask for nothing and prove nothing, and simply lie still enough for heaven to find you the way it found that man on the stone. 7 minutes is all it takes to begin opening the door we are walking toward. I feel something stirring in you right now, and I do not think it is only for you. Somewhere out there, another chosen one is sitting in their own dark room, in desperate need of these exact words, and you can be part of how they reach them. If this message has touched something real, I invite you to press like, gently, so that the algorithm carries this further into the night to the person who needs it. I invite you to leave a word in the comments, so that you become part of a community of chosen ones speaking into the silence together rather than alone. And tonight I am asking you to type the number 444. The angel number of alignment, as your way of saying I was here and I am awake. I invite you to share this with one person who has been quietly struggling, and to subscribe so the next message finds you without you ever having to search for it. And if you feel moved, there is a donation link resting in the pinned comment and in the description, not as a payment but as a way of passing this light forward to the next soul in the dark. Then let it go and stay with me, because there is so much more. You have just given yourself 7 minutes of stillness. And in that stillness, a door has quietly come unlatched. Now I want to give you the full picture of the thing I only touched a moment ago. The discovery that explains why your mind has felt the way it has felt, and why 7 minutes may be the gentlest beginning you have ever been handed. Earlier in this message, I briefly mentioned something. I want to give you the full picture now, because what I touched on in those few sentences carries more weight than I was able to give it in that moment, and you deserve to understand all of it. Let me start where the science starts, because the science starts with you. Chosen ones carry a specific frequency. This is not a metaphor. Researchers who spend their lives studying the electrical activity of the human brain have a name for the state that the most creative, most connected, most awake human beings operate in. They call it gamma. Gamma brainwaves are the fastest, highest frequency your brain produces, and when they are firing in harmony, something remarkable happens. Your mind becomes capable of things that feel almost supernatural from the outside. You make connections between ideas that other people cannot see. You sense what is happening beneath the surface of a conversation. You know things before the evidence arrives. You feel the weight of a room the moment you walk into it. Sound familiar? That is because you have been living at the edge of this frequency your entire life, straining toward it, catching glimpses of it, and then losing it again without knowing why. The reason you lose it is not weakness. It is not a spiritual failure. It is biology shaped by circumstances. When you go through long seasons of stress, disappointment, grief, rejection, and waiting without resolution, your brain begins producing a different kind of wave. The survival frequencies take over. Your nervous system, trying to protect you, shifts into a state that is good for endurance but not for elevation. And slowly, without you noticing, the gamma signal that is native to who you are gets buried under the weight of years that were simply too heavy to carry lightly. You were not losing your mind during those years. You were being pressed down by them. And the gift that was always in you, the frequency that makes you see what others miss and feel what others ignore, it did not disappear. It went underground. It has been waiting for exactly the right moment to surface again. That is where Dr. James Rivers comes in. Dr. James Rivers has spent more than 30 years in the field of neuroscience. His research has been affiliated with some of the most serious academic and scientific institutions in this country, including work connected to the halls of MIT. And during that career, he turned his attention to a question that most researchers did not think was worth asking. He wanted to know why certain people seemed to operate at a higher level of awareness than others, and whether the gap between them could be closed, not through years of therapy or decades of meditation or expensive interventions, but through something simple, something accessible, something that any person in any room could begin without special training or prior experience. What he found became the foundation of something called the genius wave. The genius wave works through a principle that neuroscientists call brainwave entrainment. Here is how it works in plain language. Your brain, when exposed to specific sound frequencies, has a natural tendency to synchronize with those frequencies. This is not a trick. It is the same reason you feel calmer near the ocean, or why certain music changes your mood without you deciding it will. Your brain is always listening, always adjusting, always looking for a signal to follow. The genius wave gives it that signal deliberately through carefully designed audio tones, the kind called binaural beats and isochronic tones, that guide the brain gently, from wherever it is into the theta and gamma states where your best thinking, your deepest intuition, and your most powerful creativity live. Theta is the frequency of the doorway. It is where your conscious mind relaxes enough to let the deeper mind speak. Children spend enormous amounts of time in theta, which is why their learning is so rapid and their creativity so effortless. Most adults have nearly lost access to it. Gamma is the frequency of breakthrough, the flash of insight, the moment a pattern suddenly becomes clear, the feeling of being fully, completely awake in a way that ordinary life rarely allows. The genius wave is designed to guide you through theta and into gamma in one continuous, seamless experience. And it takes only 7 minutes. You just gave yourself 7 minutes of silence in the practice I offered you. You already know what 7 minutes of intentional stillness feels like. The genius wave is that same 7 minutes, but with a specific audio frequency beneath it, doing the work that your untrained silence, as sincere as it is, cannot do alone. Think of it this way. You were already standing at the door. The genius wave is simply the key. Now I want to tell you about someone who was sitting exactly where you are sitting tonight. Her name was Christine, and she had been in her waiting season for nearly 4 years. She described herself as someone who used to be sharp, who used to have ideas, who used to feel lit up from the inside, and who had spent the last several years feeling like someone had slowly turned the dial down on her life until she barely recognized herself. She found the genius wave almost by accident, through a message not unlike this one, and she committed to 7 minutes every morning for 30 days. By the end of the second week, she told me something I have never forgotten. She said that it was not like becoming someone new. It was like remembering who she had always been. By the end of the 30 days, she had returned to a creative project she had abandoned 2 years earlier, rebuilt a relationship that had been fractured by the stress of those years, and received an opportunity through a conversation that she now describes as arriving out of nowhere. It did not arrive out of nowhere. It arrived because she was finally operating at the frequency, where she could recognize it and receive it. That is what this is about. Not magic, not shortcuts, the restoration of a frequency that was always yours. Now, I want to speak to the part of you that is already doing the math, because I know how chosen ones think, and I know that part of you is weighing this right now. $39 is not nothing. I hear that thought. I want you to know I do not dismiss it. There are real seasons of financial tightness, and if you are in one of those right now, that is not a small thing, and I am not going to pretend that it is. What I will say is this: the Genius Wave is normally priced at $49. Through the link in the pinned comment below, and also in the description, it is available today for $39. And it comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, which means you have 3 full months to sit with it, use it, and decide whether it has changed anything for you. If you do not feel a difference, you ask for your money back and you receive it. The risk is not yours to carry. There is something else I need to say clearly. There are imitation products online that use similar language and similar promises, but are not the Genius Wave that Dr. James Rivers created. I am telling you this because I care about what actually reaches you. Please do not purchase anything from any link except the single link in the pinned comment or the description attached to this video. That is the only verified source. That is the only place where what I have been describing to you tonight is actually what you will receive. And I want you to understand that this offer at this price will not be available indefinitely. The number of people moving through this message is growing, and the access to the $39 entry point is genuinely limited. I am not saying that to manufacture urgency in you. I am saying it because I would be doing you a disservice if I let you think this particular door stays open at this particular price, no matter when you decide to walk through it. If something in you is saying yes as you listen to this, I want you to honor that yes before the moment passes. Here is what I want you to hold on to as we continue. The season you have been walking through, the years of suppressed frequency, the quiet dimming of the light inside you, it was not wasted, and it was not a sign of divine neglect. But it also does not have to continue in the same way. The thing that was pressed down in you is ready to rise, and the path back to it is 7 minutes. 7 minutes that you already proved tonight you are willing to give. The link is in the pinned comment. It is in the description. It will be there when you are ready. And if you are ready right now, let nothing delay you. Because what I am about to walk you into next is going to ask you to look honestly at the price you have already paid for this season, the things you gave up, the years that moved while you stood still, and the weight of all of it that you have been carrying quietly. And you will not be able to fully receive what is coming if you are still holding the belief that the waiting meant none. It meant everything, and it is time for you to know why. Something happened to you in the years before tonight, and I want to name it in a way that no one around you has been willing to name it yet. Not because they were cruel. Most of them simply did not have the language. They were watching you from the outside, and from the outside, a chosen one in a waiting season looks a great deal like someone who is struggling, someone who is stuck, someone who cannot seem to get it together the way others do. So they offered the kinds of things people offer when they do not understand what they are looking at. They told you to push harder. They told you to be more practical. They told you to stop overthinking. Some of them stopped calling. Some of them moved on without looking back, and you watched them go and wondered in the silence afterward whether they were right about you. They were not right about you. What they were seeing was not failure. What they were seeing was a frequency operating at a depth that ordinary eyes cannot measure. What they were seeing was a soul being processed for something so significant that the preparation had to go all the way to the bone. You were not falling behind. You were being formed. And tonight, for the first time perhaps in a very long time, I want you to let yourself believe that without immediately arguing against it. Let me show you what I mean by reading you back to yourself through 4 things you have been experiencing. These are not generic feelings. These are the specific signatures of a chosen one moving through the deepest part of their formation season. And I want you to check them honestly as I name them, not with the part of your mind that deflects and explains, but with the part that simply knows. The first sign is a sudden wave of sadness about the past, a grief that arrives without warning, often triggered by something small, a photograph, a song, the smell of something familiar, the mention of a year that used to mean something different. This sadness is not depression, though it can feel like it. It is the soul doing something very specific. It is releasing. It is setting down versions of you that were necessary for a time, but cannot make the journey into what is next. The grief you have been feeling is not backward motion. It is the sound of old skin coming away to make room for what is being built underneath. The second sign is that familiar places and familiar people have begun to feel heavy in a way they never did before. Rooms you have walked into 100 times now feel strange to you. Conversations that used to feel easy now feel like wearing clothing that no longer fits. You sit in gatherings that should feel comfortable and find yourself somewhere else entirely in your mind, reaching for something you cannot name and cannot find in the room you are physically occupying. I know this has frightened you. I know you have wondered whether something is wrong with your ability to connect, whether you are becoming distant in a way that will cost you the relationships you still have. What is actually happening is simpler and stranger and more purposeful than that. Your spirit has outgrown the frequency of where you have been, and it is restless in the way that anything alive is restless when it has stayed in one place past the time it was meant to move. The third sign is a recurring dream, and in this dream there is always a door. Sometimes you are standing in front of it and reaching for the handle that you cannot quite grasp. Sometimes you are watching it from across a long hallway that never gets shorter, no matter how many steps you take toward it. Sometimes the door is simply present in the dream, not the center of the scene, but always there, always at the edge of your awareness, always carrying the feeling that something essential is on the other side of it and that you have not yet found the way through. That dream is not random, and it is not your anxiety speaking. It is the language of a spirit that knows a threshold is near, that knows something is about to open, and that has been rehearsing this moment in the only space available to it while you sleep. The fourth sign is that the same message keeps finding you through different mouths and different places. A stranger says something that stops you. A line in a book falls open to exactly the page you needed. Someone on a screen says words that feel as though they were written specifically for your situation, your exact situation, in a way that goes beyond coincidence and lands somewhere deeper. You have been collecting these moments and storing them, perhaps not knowing what to do with them, perhaps not trusting them fully. Trust them. You are not imagining the pattern. Heaven has been speaking in layers, through multiple sources at once, because the message is too important to risk you missing it. And you have been receiving it all along, even in the moments when you felt most abandoned. Now I want to speak to the specific textures of pain that come with this kind of season, because I will not honor what you have been through by glossing over it with language that floats too far above the actual weight of it. There have been nights when sleep would not come, when you lay in the dark turning the same thoughts over and over, searching for the thing you did wrong, or the step you missed, or the moment things changed, and finding no satisfying answer. That insomnia is not just stress. It is the symptom of a mind that is working at a depth it was not designed to work at alone, carrying the weight of a calling, without yet having the full context of what that calling is for. You were never meant to carry this without understanding. The understanding is what tonight is beginning to give you. There has been loneliness of a specific kind, not the loneliness of being without people, but the loneliness of being with people and still feeling unseen. You can be in a crowded room, at a table full of people who know your name, and feel completely invisible in the way that matters most, the way that has to do with being known at the level where you actually live. That loneliness is the ache of a chosen one whose depth has not yet found its matching community. It is not a verdict about your worth. It is a sign that you have been placed in a temporary environment that was never designed to be your permanent one. And there has been the quiet, persistent feeling of having been wronged, of having done everything you knew to do and still coming up short in the eyes of people who should have seen you differently, of having given and found the giving unreturned, of having been overlooked by doors that opened for people who seemed less prepared and less sincere than you. That feeling is real. I am not going to tell you it was all in your mind. What I am going to tell you is that there is a difference between being overlooked and being positioned, and that difference changes everything. When someone overlooks you, they make a mistake. They miss something of value because their eyes are not trained to see it. But when God positions you, He places you deliberately in a location that appears to be the wrong one by every human measure, precisely because the right season has not yet arrived, and the wrong exposure would cost you something you cannot afford to lose. You were not passed over. You were protected. You were not forgotten. You were being held in reserve for a moment that required exactly the version of you that could only be produced by exactly the road you have been on. Overlooked says you were missed. Position says you were placed. And chosen one, you were placed. What the world called your delay, heaven called your development. What the people around you called your stagnation, the divine called your formation. The season that looked like nothing from the outside was everything on the inside. And the version of you that is sitting here tonight, awake and listening and willing to receive, is the evidence that the formation worked. Now I want to pause here, right at this threshold of recognition, because something is happening not just in you but all around you. Chosen ones all over this world are arriving at this exact same moment of being named and seen at the same time you are, and that is not a coincidence. It is a convergence. If this message is reaching you, I want to invite you gently to press like, so that it reaches the next person who is ready to be named the way you were just named. Leave a word in the comments, not because the channel needs the activity, but because it marks that you were here, that you showed up for yourself today, and that you did not turn away when the truth came close. Share this with someone who has been searching for stillness in a season that has been anything but still, and if you feel something open in you as you listen, there is a link in the pinned comment where you can leave a blessing for the next soul who finds their way here. Choose to remain part of what is being built by subscribing, not as a platform action, but as a way of saying, I belong to this community of chosen ones who are waking up together. And now, into the comment below, I want to ask you to type the words I receive. Not as a declaration that everything is already clear, not as a claim that the pain is gone, but as the sound of a spirit that has just been named correctly for the first time in a long time, opening its hands instead of keeping them closed. I receive. Type that now, and let it be your response to the truth that just found you. Because what comes next is something I do not want you to walk into without understanding the full price of where you have been. Not to reopen wounds, but to honor them. And what we are about to do together in the next few minutes is look honestly at what this season has actually cost you, and why the cost was not senseless, and why the one who loves you has been fully aware of every penny of it. You just typed those words, or felt them move through you even if your fingers did not reach the screen. And I want you to stay in that openness as we walk into something that most messages in this space are too afraid to do. Most messages will name your pain just long enough to pivot away from it. They will acknowledge the waiting and then rush you toward the breakthrough, because the breakthrough feels better to talk about and easier to receive. I am not going to do that to you tonight, because I have learned that chosen ones who are cast their pain too quickly end up carrying it forever, turning it over in private, never quite able to set it down, because no one ever sat with them long enough in the middle of it to make it mean something. So before we'll go any further toward what is coming, I need to sit with you in what has already been. I need to name, honestly and without softening the edges, what these years have actually taken from you. Not what they gave you in disguise, not the hidden blessings buried in the losses. Just the losses first, the way they actually feel when you are alone and not performing strength for anyone. There are relationships that could have been built during this season that were not built. There are friendships that needed tending during years when you had nothing left to give. And so they quietly dried up, and by the time you looked up from the weight of your own survival, they were already gone. There are people you wanted to be present for. A parent who needed more of you. A child who needed more of you. A partner who was asking for something you could not locate in yourself during the years the waiting was heaviest, and you gave what you could, and it was not enough, and you know it was not enough. That is a real loss. The version of those relationships that could have existed if you had not been carrying what you were carrying, that version never got to happen, and I think you have grieved it more privately and more deeply than anyone around you knows. There is a career that could have gone further. There are opportunities you saw clearly, but could not reach because the internal fog of the waiting season dulled the very gifts that would have let you take hold of them. There are rooms you were standing at the edge of that closed before you could step inside. Not because you were unqualified, but because the weight on you in that season made you smaller than you actually are. You watched people with less preparation and less sincerity walk through doors that you had been standing outside of for years, and you smiled and said the right things, and then went home and sat with the specific ache of that. The ache that does not have a clean name, but lives somewhere between disappointment and shame. I am naming that ache tonight because it deserves to be named. You have been carrying it unnamed for too long. There is the freedom you lost to tell your big dreams out loud. Do you remember when you used to say them without embarrassment? The things you believed you were here to do, the scale of what you sensed inside you. And then the years went by, and the distance between what you sensed and what was actually happening in your life grew wider and wider. And at some point, you stopped saying the big things because saying them had started to feel like a kind of cruelty to yourself. So you learned to speak smaller. You learned to want less out loud, even if privately the original dream never actually left. You became fluent in a diminished language because the full language had started to cost you too much hope every time you used it. That shrinking was not weakness. It was the coping mechanism of a heart that did not know how much longer it could afford to believe at full volume. But something was lost in that shrinking, and I want to honor that loss before I ask you to begin expanding again. And then there is perhaps the most painful one of all. There is faith in yourself. There is the quiet confidence that you arrived here with, the inner knowing that told you in your earliest years that you were here for something real, that the life inside you was not ordinary, that the things you sensed and felt and saw were not delusions but signals. And the years of waiting, of evidence that seemed to contradict that inner knowing at every turn, wore down the certainty until what was once a steady flame became a pilot light that you check on in private, hoping it is still there, afraid to look too directly in case it has finally gone out. That erosion of self-belief is not something people talk about in spiritual communities because it sounds too close to doubt, too close to failing the test of faith. But I have spoken to enough chosen ones in the deep middle of their seasons to know that this particular loss is the one that costs the most and is mourned the most quietly. I am sitting with all of that with you right now. I am not rushing past it. I am not telling you it was secretly good the whole time. Some of it was simply hard, and hard is a complete sentence, and you have earned the right to let it be one. Now I want to bring you to a man whose story the ancient text gives us in the book of Genesis, a man named Joseph. And I am only going to tell you the part that most people skip over to get to the ending, because you do not need the ending right now. You need the middle, because the middle is where you have been living. Joseph was 17 years old when his brothers stripped the robe from his back and sold him to strangers headed for a foreign country. He had done nothing to deserve it, He had dreamed dreams that were given to him, not invented by him, and the gift of those dreams was the very thing that made his brothers despise him. He did not choose to be favored. He did not choose to carry a vision that set him apart, and yet the carrying of it cost him everything he had at 17. His family, his home, his freedom, his name in the country where he was known. Then he served faithfully in a household where he had no rights, and he was falsely accused by someone he had not wronged, and he was imprisoned for a crime he did not commit. He sat in that prison for years, not days, years. And the text does not give us a record of his prayers during those years, does not tell us what he said to God in the dark, does not tell us whether his faith stayed clean and steady the whole time, or whether it bent under the weight, the way a green branch bends under snow. It simply tells us he was there, in the pit, in the prison, in the in-between for years, with no visible evidence that the dreams were ever going to mean anything. I tell you this not to encourage you with the Joseph who became second in Egypt, because we are not there yet in our story tonight. I tell you this to honor the Joseph in the pit, the Joseph in the prison, the Joseph who kept going without knowing how it was going to end, because that Joseph is the one you most resemble right now. And I want you to understand that being in the pit and being chosen are not contradictions. They never were. Joseph was as chosen in the pit as he was in the palace. The location did not determine the identity. The calling was intact the entire time. It simply had not yet been revealed to the people who needed to see it. And neither has yours. But that is not the same as it not existing. Your calling was intact in the hardest year. It was intact in the season when you stopped saying the big things out loud. It was intact when the relationships thinned and the career stalled and the faith in yourself flickered. It has been intact the entire time you have been in your version of that prison. And tonight is the beginning of the movement toward the moment when it gets revealed. I said at the beginning of this part that I would not reframe too quickly, and I have tried to honor that. I have tried to sit with the actual cost of your season without rushing you past it. But I want to click this part by saying one true thing that the cost itself points to, not to diminish the cost, but to place it in a context that can begin to hold it. Nothing that has been taken from you was wasted in the economy of heaven, not the relationships, not the career, not the freedom to dream out loud, not the faith in yourself that wore thin in the dark years. Every single thing that was pressed out of you during this season was being pressed out of you in the same way that olives are pressed, not to destroy what is there, but to release what could not come out any other way. You were not crushed, you were being processed. And what is about to come out of the processing is something that the years in the pit could never produce if they had not gone all the way down to the bottom. You went all the way down, and that, chosen one, is the beginning of the only kind of rising that actually holds. Stay with me, because in the next part of this message, I want to give you a lens from ancient language that is going to change the way you see every single year you have just mourned, in a way that does not erase the mourning, but transforms what it means. What you called lost time, the ancient tongue calls something else entirely. And once I give you that word, I do not think you will be able to call it lost again. There is a word I want to give you before we go any further, and I want to give it to you slowly, because it is the kind of word that needs to be received rather than simply heard. You have been measuring your life in the wrong kind of time. I do not say that as a criticism. I say it because it is the single most common source of pain among chosen ones in their waiting seasons, and it is entirely understandable, because the kind of time you have been measuring in is the only kind of time that the world around you recognizes. It is the kind of time that moves in one direction at a steady pace, that can be divided into days and months and years, that can be compared and calculated and charted on a graph. The ancient Greeks had a word for this kind of time. They called it Chronos. And Chronos is real. It is the time that your body ages in, the time that bills arrive in, the time that other people's timelines move through while yours appears to stand still. You have been living inside Chronos and judging yourself by its measurements. And every year that passed without the breakthrough you were promised felt like another unit of evidence that something had gone wrong. But the Greeks had another word for time, and this second word is the one I need to place in your hands tonight. They called it Kairos. And Kairos does not move the way Chronos moves. Kairos is not a quantity, it is a quality. It is not a length of time, but a ripeness of time, the specific moment when conditions have aligned in a way that makes what was previously impossible suddenly, not only possible, but inevitable. Kairos is the moment a seed breaks open underground, not because a certain number of days have passed, but because everything that needed to happen in the soil has finally happened. Kairos is the moment a door swings open, not because you finally pushed hard enough, but because the hinges were being prepared on the other side in a process you had no access to and no ability to hurry. Here is what this means for you specifically. Every year you spent in your waiting season that felt like wasted Chronos was actually Kairos being assembled. The years were not empty. They were active in a dimension you were not able to see. Things were being arranged. Connections were being prepared. The person you needed to meet was being moved into position. The opportunity that is coming your way was being constructed in rooms you had no invitation to enter yet, not because you were unworthy, but because your presence there before the right moment would have cost you the very thing the moment was being built to give you. You were being brought toward the exact time, you were being brought toward the exact moment that had your name written on it before you were born. That is not clock time, that is Kairos. And Kairos cannot be late, because Kairos bite, because Kairos arrives at the only moment it was ever going to arrive. I want you to feel the weight of what I just said. Lift something off you. Stop counting the years. Stop comparing your timeline to the one running alongside yours that belongs to someone else. Stop treating Chronos as the judge of your calling. Your calling does not live in Chronos. It lives in Kairos, and Kairos is already in motion, and you are already inside it, which is precisely why you found yourself listening to these exact words on this exact night. Now, I want to bring you to a second ancient concept, because Kairos tells you about the nature of the timing, but there is something else I want to name for the nature of the place you have been in. And for this, I want to take you into the wilderness. Not the wilderness as a punishment, not the wilderness as evidence of divine abandonment, the wilderness as a specific, sacred, and purposeful stage in the journey of every person who has ever been called to carry something significant. This is not a metaphor I am inventing. The ancient texts are full of it. The wilderness appears again and again in the stories of the ones who were chosen for the most weight-bearing assignments, and it appears not as the place where things fell apart, but as the place immediately before the place where everything came together. Think about what a wilderness actually is. It is a place of reduced landmarks. The usual signs that tell you where you are and how you are doing are absent. The social confirmations, the career markers, the relational milestones that tell most people they are on the right track. In the wilderness, those things thin out or disappear entirely. And when the landmarks disappear, the only navigation available is internal. You have to learn to hear things you could not hear when the world was loud. You have to develop a sensitivity to direction that people who never left the city never have to develop, because they always have a street sign to tell them where they are. The wilderness strips the street signs away and forces you to learn a different kind of knowing. That is what has been happening to you. The disorientation you have felt in this season, the strangeness of familiar places, the heaviness of conversations that used to feel easy, the recurring sense that you do not quite fit where you are anymore. All of that has been the wilderness doing its specific work in you. It has been removing your dependence on external landmarks so that you can learn to navigate by something older and deeper and far more reliable. It has been developing in you a capacity for inner direction that will be absolutely essential in the season that is coming, because what is coming will require you to move through territory that no one around you has mapped, and you will need to know how to find your way without a street sign. The wilderness is not a punishment, it is a preparation, and the specific things it has taken from you, the ease, the clarity, the sense of knowing exactly where you stand, it has taken those things not to impoverish you, but to replace them with something that cannot be given in any other environment. You cannot develop wilderness navigation in a city. You cannot develop the kind of deep internal compass that chosen ones carry into their greatest assignments anywhere, except in the place where the external compasses stop working. The wilderness was the only classroom that could teach what you needed to learn. And here is the thing about wilderness seasons that the people who have come out the other side all say, without exception. They say that in the middle of it, they could not have told you what it was producing in them. The formation is invisible from the inside. You cannot see your own strengthening while it is happening any more than a bone can observe itself becoming denser. You only discover what the wilderness made you when you step out of it and find yourself doing things you could not do before, carrying things you could not carry before, seeing things that other people are still walking past without noticing. That moment of discovery is coming for you. And when it comes, you will look back at the wilderness, not with bitterness, but with a kind of reverent astonishment, the way you might look back at a fire you walked through, and realize that not only did it not destroy you, but it burned away the only things that were standing between you and who you were always meant to be. You are not lost in the wilderness. You are being finished in it. There is a difference so significant that it changes the entire way you hold what you have been through. Now I want to say something briefly before we move into the next part of this message. And I want to say it gently, without pressure, because that is the only way I know how to offer it. What I have been describing tonight, the restoration of a frequency that the wilderness years pressed down, the return of the gamma signal that belongs to the chosen ones who carry what you carry, that is exactly what Dr. James Rivers spent more than 30 years building toward. The genius wave exists precisely for the person who has been through the kind of season we have been naming together tonight. The wilderness compresses the frequency. 7 minutes a day begins to restore it. If that has been sitting in the back of your mind as we have been walking through this together, the link is in the pinned comment and in the description, and it will be there whenever you are ready to reach for it. There is no rush. But I did not want to walk through everything we have just named without reminding you that the restoration is not only spiritual, it is also neurological, and it is available. Because what I want to move into now is the part of this message that I have been building toward since the beginning, the part where I stop describing what has been happening and start showing you what is already moving toward you in 3 very specific and very concrete areas of your life. The ground has already shifted. The appointed things are already in motion. And in the next part of this message, I want to name them one by one so that when they arrive, and they are arriving, you will not mistake them for coincidence. You will recognize them for what they are. The Kairos moment, fully assembled, walking through the door that the wilderness prepared you to open. The ground beneath you has already shifted. And I want you to feel that before I name what is moving toward you, because feeling it matters as much as understanding it. There is something different about this moment compared to every other moment in your waiting season. You can sense it, even if you cannot yet articulate it. Something that was locked has come loose. Something that was facing away from you has turned. You have not done anything dramatically different in the last few days or weeks to cause this, and that is exactly the point. The shift did not come because you finally performed well enough or believed hard enough or pushed through one more time with enough force. The shift came because the Kairos moment we talked about in the last part of this message has arrived, and Kairos does not announce itself with fanfare. It arrives quietly in the middle of an ordinary evening while you are sitting still enough to notice that something is different about the air. I want to be very specific with you now. I'm not going to speak in generalities about blessing and breakthrough, because you have heard those words so many times in your waiting season that they have started to feel like furniture, present in the room, but no longer really seen. I want to name 3 concrete areas where things are already beginning to move. And I want to describe them in enough detail that when you see them happening in your own life, you will recognize them immediately, and you will know what they mean. The first thing that is moving towards you is a realignment in your relational world, and it is going to feel uncomfortable before it feels like a gift. Here is what that looks like in practice. People who have been present in your life for years, people who felt permanent, are going to begin to create distance. Some of them will do it through conflict, a disagreement that escalates beyond what it should, a misunderstanding that neither of you seems to be able to repair. Some of them will do it more quietly, a gradual thinning of contact, fewer messages, slower responses, a growing sense that you are no longer occupying the same frequency. I want to tell you in advance so that when this happens, you do not spend your energy trying to pull those relationships back. The loosening is not a loss. It is a clearing. The people who are moving back because they belong to the season you are leaving, and trying to hold them in place would mean holding yourself in place with them. At the same time, and this part I want you to watch for very carefully, new people are going to begin appearing in your orbit in a way that feels almost too precise to be accidental. Someone will say exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment. A conversation will go to a depth that usually takes years to reach in what feels like minutes. You will meet someone and feel, without being able to explain it rationally, that you have been moving toward this person for a long time, that the meeting was not random, that something deliberate brought you into the same space at the same time. Pay attention to those people. They are not coincidences. They are Kairos appointments, arriving exactly on schedule in the new season that is opening around you. The second thing that is moving toward you is clarity of purpose, and it is going to arrive not as a grand revelation, but as a single small step that becomes undeniably clear. One of the most exhausting things about the waiting season is the fog around the question of what you are supposed to be doing. You have asked that question in so many different ways, over so many different years. You have prayed it and journaled it and turned it over in the dark hours of the night when the insomnia came. And the silence around the question has felt like either evidence that there is no answer or evidence that you are not ready to receive it. Neither of those things is true. The silence was the wilderness, doing its work, removing the noise so that when the answer came, it would not be buried under everything else competing for your attention. The answer is not going to arrive as a 5-year plan laid out in front of you like a map with every road clearly marked. It is going to arrive as one step, one clear, specific, undeniable next step that you will know is right, not because it makes perfect logical sense, but because it carries a piece that your spirit recognizes. It will not be the whole picture. It will be enough. And here is the thing I need you to understand about that one step. The entire journey forward depends on whether you take it. Not the second step or the 10th step, just the first one. The rest will become visible as you move. That is how Kairos works. It does not hand you the whole road at once. It illuminates exactly as far as you need to see to take the next step, and then it illuminates the step after that as soon as your foot has left the ground. Watch for the small clarity. It will not look dramatic. It might look like a quiet impulse to reach out to someone. It might look like a door that opens in a conversation you were not expecting to have. It might look like a thought that keeps returning, gentle and persistent, that points in a direction you have been hesitant to move in. When it comes, do not wait for it to become louder. It will not get louder. It will simply remain steady, and your job is to trust the steadiness enough to move. The third thing that is moving toward you is a shift in how resources and opportunities reach you, and the shift is from striving to receiving. I want to speak carefully here, because I do not want to give you a promise that sounds like magic. What I am describing is not that you will stop working or stop being intentional. What I am describing is a change in the quality of the effort. In your waiting season, getting anything to move has required a kind of force that depleted you. You have been pushing doors that were not yet ready to open, spending enormous amounts of energy on things that should have been simpler, working twice as hard as the results justified, and coming away from the effort feeling emptied rather than energized. That is the signature of a person operating out of season. When you are pushing against a Chronos timeline that does not belong to you, everything requires more force than it should. In the Kairos season that is opening, the quality of that changes. Opportunities that are meant for you will begin to find you, rather than requiring you to hunt them down. Connections that matter will arrive, without the exhausting engineering that previous seasons required. Resources will come through channels you did not anticipate, through people you did not manipulate into position, through timing that you could not have orchestrated if you had tried. This is not passivity. You will still show up, still work, still bring everything you have, but the resistance will be different. You will begin to experience what it feels like to move with something rather than against it. And that experience, the first time you feel it clearly, will be unmistakable. You are not going to have to fight for what belongs to you in this season. What belongs to you is already moving in your direction, and your job is simply to remain open enough to recognize it when it arrives, and courageous enough to receive it without immediately looking for the catch. Now I want to speak to the emotions you are carrying in this moment, because they matter. You are feeling something that resembles hope, but it is a more careful kind of hope than the kind you used to carry easily. The waiting seasons have taught you to hold hope at a slight distance, to not let it get too close too quickly, because the pain of withdrawn hope is something you have experienced enough times that your spirit has developed a kind of protective caution around it. I understand that caution. I am not going to ask you to abandon it. What I am going to ask is that you let tonight's hope be different, not because it promises more, but because it is built on something sturdier than feeling. It is built on the recognition of pattern, the naming of signs that were already present before I mentioned them, the resonance of words that landed not because they were clever, but because they were true. There is one thing I want to counsel you against doing in this season, and it is the thing that has derailed more chosen ones at the threshold of their Kairos moment than almost anything else. Do not announce this shift prematurely to people who are not yet able to see what you are seeing. The excitement of feeling something move after years of stillness can create an urgency to share it, to make it real by speaking it into rooms where it will not be received. Guard what is growing, not forever, just until it is rooted enough to survive the skepticism of people who have only seen your wilderness season and have not yet witnessed what the wilderness produced in you. You can believe in everything that is coming. You do not have to defend it to anyone. Just tend it and let it grow, and trust that the evidence will arrive in a form that requires no argument. Chosen ones do not only receive what is given, they carry it forward and multiply it. And every person who finds this message becomes part of a movement that no single waiting season could ever contain. I want to invite you to press like as an act of choosing to be part of that movement, not for the channel, but for the next chosen one who needs to know the ground is shifting. Drop a word in the comments as a signal to others who are watching that they are not here alone. And share this with someone who is still deep in their waiting season and needs to hear that the ground is already moving beneath them. Stay at the table by subscribing, because what is being built here is not finished, and you belong in the room where it continues. And if you feel moved to sow into this ground, the donation link is in the pinned comment, an act of a chosen one investing in something that will grow fruit for the next person standing at the threshold after you. Type the words "I see it" in the comments if what I just described in those 3 areas landed somewhere specific and real in you, not as a performance, as a marker, as the sound of a chosen one saying, "I recognize this, and I am not going to look away." Because what I want to give you next is a name. Not the name your parents gave you, and not the name your waiting season tried to give you. A name that describes who you have become through everything we have walked through together tonight, and who you are being sent out as from this moment forward. That name is waiting for you in the next part of this message. And once I give it to you, I think you are going to understand in a new way why everything you went through had to go exactly as deep as it did. You just marked yourself with those words, "I see it." And I want you to hold that recognition as we walk into this next part together, because what I am about to give you is not something to be received casually. Throughout this entire message, we have been moving towards something. We moved through the recognition of who you are, through the honest naming of what this season has cost you, through the ancient language of Kairos and the wilderness, through the 3 concrete things already moving toward you in your relationships, your purpose, and your resources. And all of that movement, every single step of it, was bringing you here to this moment, where I give you the name of who you have become on the other side of everything you have been through. Not the name your parents gave you when you arrived in this world, though that name is loved. Not the name your waiting season tried to give you, the names that whispered in the dark that you were behind and broken and forgotten and too much and not enough simultaneously. I want to give you the name that describes what the wilderness produced in you, what the Kairos season is releasing you as, what heaven has been assembling through every year that looked from the outside like nothing was happening. Your name is Hope Restorer. Let me say that again so it has room to settle into the place it belongs. You are a hope restorer, and I want to be careful here. because that title could float past you like something inspirational and decorative if I do not root it in what it actually means and why it belongs to you specifically, and not to someone who had an easier road. A hope restorer is not someone who has never lost hope themselves. That is the misunderstanding that would make the name feel false to you, because you know, better than most people in your life know, what it feels like to hold hope at arm's length. You know the careful distance that a spirit develops after too many seasons of reaching for something that did not arrive on the timeline it was promised. You know the specific exhaustion of believing and not yet seeing, of staying in faith past the point of where faith felt reasonable, watching people around you receive what you were also trusting for, and finding a way to be genuinely glad for them, while privately wondering in the silence of 3 a.m. whether something about your particular situation was beyond repair. A hope restorer is someone who has carried that weight and not been destroyed by it, who has walked through the complete loss of easy hope and discovered on the other side of that loss that there is another kind of hope entirely, one that does not depend on circumstances cooperating or timelines arriving on schedule, one that is rooted so far down in the identity of who God says you are that it cannot be moved by what the external world does or does not do. That deeper hope, the kind that survives the wilderness, is the only kind that has the power to restore hope in someone else. Because the person who has never had their hope pressed to the breaking point can offer encouragement, which is a real and valuable thing, but they cannot offer restoration. Restoration requires someone who has been in the same darkness and found the way through it, not around it but through it, and who carries the map of that journey in their own experience. You carry that map. Every year of the waiting season wrote something on it. Every night of insomnia added a line. Every relationship that thinned out, every career door that closed, every moment you kept going without knowing why, all of it was cartography. You were being made into someone who could look another person in their darkest moment and say with authority that does not come from theology alone, but from lived experience, I know this place and I know the way through it, and you are not going to be left here. That is what a hope restorer does, and that is who you are. Now I want to take you somewhere. I want to guide you into a visualization, and I am asking you to stay with me in it fully, because this is not an exercise in the ordinary sense. This is a threshold crossing, and I want to do it with you deliberately and without rushing. If you are somewhere, you can close your eyes safely. Close them now. If not, let your gaze go soft, resting somewhere unfocused, as though you are looking at something just beyond the surface of what is physically in front of you. Picture yourself standing at a threshold. It is a simple doorway, not dramatic or ornate, just a clear opening between two different spaces. The floor beneath your feet is solid. You are standing with your full weight on ground that holds you completely. You are not tipping forward or being pulled back. You are simply present, upright, standing at the place where one season ends and another begins. Now turn and look at the road behind you. Take your time with this. Do not rush past it. Let yourself actually see it. The years stretch out in both directions, and you can see them with a clarity that was not available to you while you were walking through them. You can see the places where the road narrowed and the light thinned and the landmarks disappeared entirely. You can see the nights that were the hardest, the ones where hope felt like a word that belonged to other people. You can see the specific moments where you almost stopped and did not stop, not because stopping was never tempting, but because something in you, something placed there before you were born, kept choosing one more step, even when one more step was all you could manage. You can see the people who walked beside you for portions of the road and then turned onto a paths. You can see the versions of yourself you had to leave behind because they could not make the full journey. The version that needed the approval of others to feel that the calling was real. The version that made itself smaller than it was, to preserve relationships that ultimately could not contain who you were becoming. The version that had not yet learned to trust the inner compass over the accumulated noise of voices that did not know where you were going. Look at all of it. Not with judgment and not with grief, at least not right now. Just see it. And as you let something register in you that perhaps has not had room to register fully until this moment, you survived every single thing on that road. After the hardest years, the loneliest nights, the heaviest losses, the most disorienting stretches of the wilderness, you are still here. You are standing. That is not a small or ordinary thing. That is the evidence of a hope restorer who was built for a distance that most people could not have walked, being prepared for a purpose that required exactly that range. Now turn back toward the threshold and look through it at what is on the other side. You do not need to see everything with perfect clarity, and it would not be appropriate if you did, because Kairos does not hand you the whole map at once. But let yourself sense what is there. There is more light on the other side than there was on the road you came from. There is a quality of spaciousness, room to move in ways the wilderness did not allow. There is the feeling of being expected, of arriving somewhere that was built with your specific shape in mind, where the doorways are the right height and the rooms are the right size for someone who carries what you carry. There is the sense of people on the other side who need what only you can give them, not because you are the most gifted or the most prepared in any conventional sense, but because you went through what you went through and came out carrying the thing they desperately need, which is not advice or information, but the living proof that hope survives the wilderness and comes out the other side stronger than it went in. And now let yourself notice exactly where you are standing. You are not still on the road behind you. You are not yet fully through the threshold into what is ahead. You are at the exact point between the two, one hand perhaps resting on the frame of the door, with the entirety of your road behind you and the light of what is coming already touching your face. That is where you are right now in your actual life. Not still deep in the wilderness, not yet fully in the new season, standing at the threshold as a hope restorer who is about to step through into the room where their name is known and their function is needed. That is not a difficult place to be, even though it might feel unfamiliar. It is the most significant place a chosen one can stand. The threshold is not a waiting room. It is the moment of becoming, and you are already in it. Stay there for a breath. Let it be real. Let yourself be the hope restorer at the door of everything the wilderness was preparing you to walk into. Now let me speak some words over you, because there are specific blessings that belong to a hope restorer, and I want to place them deliberately before we continue. I speak over you the blessing of authority in the darkness, that when you sit with someone in their hardest night, you will know what to say. Not because you memorized the right words, but because you have been in that night and you carried something out of it that gives your presence a weight that comfort alone cannot produce. I speak over you the thing of personal hope fully restored, that the thing that was pressed thin in you during the waiting years comes back not to its former level, but to a depth you have not previously known, rooted in ground that the next wilderness season, if one comes, will not be able to reach. I speak over you the blessing of being found by the people who need what you carry, that you will not have to search for them, or manufacture the connections that they will arrive in your path at the right moment, recognizable to you and you to them, drawn together by something older than strategy. I speak over you the blessing of restored voice, that the dreams you stopped saying out loud find their way back to your tongue, and that when you speak them in this new season, you speak them into soil that is finally ready to receive them and grow them into what they were always meant to become. I speak over you the blessing of rest without guilt, that the hope restorer who has carried so much for so long is permitted now to receive as generously as they have given, to be restored in the same measure they have restored others, to know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of what they carry. And I speak over you the blessing of legacy, that the hope you restore in others does not stop with them, but travels forward through them into people you will never meet and seasons you will not live to see, and that your name, in the way that matters most, is written into a story far larger than the one you have been able to see from inside your own waiting season. You are a hope restorer. You are standing at the threshold, and everything on the other side of that door has been waiting for exactly the version of you that the wilderness just finished making. Carry that name with you now, because in the next part of this message, I want to bring you into very practical and very grounded territory, the specific actions that belong to this new season, the things you can begin doing today, in real and ordinary time, to align yourself with everything that is already moving in your direction. You are standing at the threshold with your name. And now I want to bring you all the way down into the practical, because a chosen one who has been named but not equipped is like a hope restorer who knows their calling, but does not yet know what to do with their hands. So let me give you your hands back. Everything we have walked through in this message, the recognition of who you are, the honest sitting with what the season cost you, the ancient language of Kairos and the wilderness, the three things moving toward you, the name that the wilderness produced in you, all of it has been preparing you for this moment. The moment where the spiritual becomes practical, where the invisible becomes actionable, where the threshold you are standing at becomes a door you actually walk through into your daily life. I want to talk about 3 areas that are about to transform, and I want to be specific enough that you can carry this out of this message and into tomorrow morning and the morning after that. Not vague spiritual principles that sound meaningful in the moment and dissolve before breakfast. Concrete, real, grounded things that a hope restorer does in the ordinary hours of their ordinary days as they step into the extraordinary season that is opening around them. The first area is your relationships, and the transformation here is going to require something from you that does not come naturally after a long waiting season. It is going to require you to release your grip. Here is what I mean. After years of watching relationships thin out and people leave and connections dry up without explanation, it is entirely natural to develop a holding pattern around the people who remain. You have probably been holding certain relationships more tightly than feels comfortable, not out of manipulation or neediness, but out of the survival instinct of someone who has learned that people leave and has decided at some level to make that less likely by holding on. I understand that impulse completely, but I want to tell you that in this new season, that holding pattern is going to work against you, because the relational realignment that is coming can not complete itself if you are gripping the old configuration too tightly to let the new one form. Here is what you can do practically, beginning now. Identify the relationships in your life that have been feeling heavy, the ones that require enormous amounts of energy to maintain, the ones where you leave the conversation feeling emptied rather than filled, the ones that have been running on history and obligation rather than genuine mutual nourishment. You do not need to end those relationships dramatically or with announcement. Simply stop engineering them. Stop being the one who always reaches out, always initiates, always works to keep the connection alive through sheer effort of will. Let them find their natural level, and then, with the energy you reclaim from that releasing, practice being genuinely open to new connection. Not searching desperately or networking strategically, just open, present, available, willing to let a conversation go somewhere unexpected, willing to let a stranger become significant. The new people who are moving into your orbit in this season need to find an open door, not a door that is being held shut by the weight of maintenance relationships that have already run their course. And for the relationships that are meant to stay, the ones that carry genuine mutual depth and real reciprocal nourishment, this is the season to invest in them differently. Not with more effort, but with more presence. Put the phone down. Ask the deeper question. Stay in the conversation past the point where it becomes comfortable and interesting things start to happen. A Hope Restorer's most powerful relational tool is not advice or wisdom. It is presence, the quality of being fully in the room with another person in a way that most people in their distracted and hurried lives almost never experience. Practice that. It costs nothing and it changes everything. The second area is your purpose, and the transformation here is simpler than you might expect, which is exactly why it is easy to miss. You have been waiting for clarity about your purpose to arrive as a complete picture, a vision clear enough and large enough and detailed enough to justify the boldness of acting on it. I want to release you from that waiting, because the complete picture is not how Kairos delivers the calling. The calling arrives as one step, and the step is almost always smaller and more ordinary than the size of the calling would lead you to expect. Here is what you can do practically. At the end of today, before you sleep, ask yourself one question. Not what is my purpose? That question is too large and too abstract to yield a useful answer in the ordinary hours of an ordinary evening. Ask instead, what is the one thing that kept coming back to me today that I kept setting aside because it did not seem important enough, or practical enough, or ready enough to act on? That returning thing, that quiet, persistent impulse that you have been filing under not yet or not quite, or I will get to that when things are clearer, that is almost certainly the next step. It has been trying to get your attention, and the noise of the waiting season and the weight of the bigger question have been drowning it out. Write it down, just that one thing, and then do the smallest possible version of it tomorrow. Not the full version, not the version that requires everything to be in place first. The smallest version. The phone call you have been putting off. The page you have been meaning to write. The conversation you have been rehearsing for months without having. The idea you keep returning to that you have been treating as too simple to be significant. Do the smallest version of it, and then watch what happens in the 48 hours after you do. Purpose does not wait for grand gestures. It moves through small obediences, one step at a time, illuminating the next step only after the foot has left the ground on the current one. A Hope Restorer does not need the whole map before they move. They need the next step and the willingness to take it. You have both. The third area is your resources and opportunities, and the transformation here is perhaps the most counterintuitive of the three, because it requires you to do less of something you have been doing a great deal of, which is forcing. You have been in a season where getting anything to move required enormous exertion. You pushed doors, you made calls, You constructed strategies. You worked angles. You did all of this not because you are a manipulative person, but because in the Chronos season, when the Kairos moment had not yet arrived, effort was the only tool available to you, and you used it the way a person uses every tool they have when they are trying to survive. But the Kairos season operates differently, and the habits of the Chronos season can actually work against you here if you carry them forward without examination. Here is what you can do practically. Begin practicing what I want to call first response awareness. When an opportunity arrives, before you immediately begin strategizing about how to extract the maximum value from it, before you start calculating and engineering and positioning, pause for a breath and ask yourself one question. Does this carry peace? Not excitement, though excitement may be present, not logic, though the logic may be sound. Peace, the specific quality of inner settledness that your spirit knows how to recognize even when your mind is still catching up. If the answer is yes, move toward it without over-engineering the approach. If the answer is no, or if you genuinely cannot tell because the noise in you is too loud to hear clearly, wait. Not forever, just long enough to let the noise settle and the signal become clear. The resources and opportunities that belong to your Kairos season will carry that peace. They will feel like arriving rather than acquiring. They will come with a sense of rightness that does not require you to talk yourself into them. And the ones that do not belong to this season, the ones that look good on the surface, but carry a subtle unease beneath the excitement, those are the ones that will cost you more than they give. You are developed enough now, after everything the wilderness produced in you, to tell the difference. Trust that development. It was not accidental. Alongside these three areas, I want to place something in your hands that belongs to the practical work of this season, a tool that supports the neurological dimension of everything we have been naming spiritually. The frequency that the wilderness years suppressed, the gamma signal that belongs to the chosen one that you are. The restoration of that frequency is not only a spiritual event, it is also a neurological one. And the practical daily action of 7 minutes with the Genius Wave is the support structure for everything else I have been describing. The relational clarity, the purposeful next step, the ability to sense peace accurately enough to distinguish between what is yours and what is not. All of these are functions of a brain operating at the frequency it was designed for. 7 minutes a day. The link is in the pinned comment and in the description. That is the practical anchor for the practical season you are stepping into. Now let me say one more thing before we move into the final part of this message, and I want to say it plainly, because you have earned plainness tonight after everything we have walked through together. You are not going into this new season alone. You are not going in underprepared. You are not going in as the same person who entered the wilderness, diminished and uncertain, and holding hope at a careful distance. You are going in as a hope restorer who has been through the fire and came out carrying something that the fire could not touch, something that belongs to you now in a way that no waiting season and no further difficulty can take away, because it was forged in the deepest part of hardest years, and it is yours permanently. The threshold is behind you. You are already stepping through. And in the next part of this message, the final part of our time together tonight, I want to release you well. I want to send you out with the weight off your shoulders and the name on your spirit and the practical tools in your hands into the season that has been waiting for exactly the version of you that you have become. We have traveled a long way together tonight, and before I say anything else, I want to acknowledge something that I think often goes unsaid in spaces like this one. You showed up. That might sound like a small thing from the outside, but I know what it costs a chosen one in the middle of a waiting season to keep showing up for messages like this one, to keep placing themselves in the way of words that invite hope when hope has been a complicated thing to carry. You could have been somewhere else tonight. You could have been numb in front of something that asked nothing of you. Instead, you were here, all the way through, and that choice matters more than you may realize. Right now, because showing up is how the hope restorer keeps their own hope alive in the season before they begin restoring it in others. Every time you choose presence over numbness, you are doing something significant for yourself and for everyone your restored life is going to touch. So I want to begin this final part by saying sincerely, without performance and without the kind of gratitude that functions as a transition device, that I am genuinely glad you were here tonight. What was built in the space between these words and your heart belongs to both of us now, and I do not take that lightly. Now I want to do something that I told you we would do, and I want to do it carefully. I want to invite you to lay something down, not in a forced or dramatic way, not with a declaration that has to be performed at full emotional volume to count. Just quietly, the way you might set something heavy on a table after carrying it for a very long time. Not throwing it, not making a ceremony of it, just releasing the weight from your hands and letting the surface hold it instead of your body. I want you to think about the specific heaviness you carried into this message tonight. Not a general sense of struggle, but the particular weight that was sitting on you when you first pressed play. The specific thing that has been the heaviest part of this season for you personally. Maybe it is the grief of the relationships that did not survive the waiting. Maybe it is the exhaustion of years of effort that produced less than the effort deserved. Maybe it is the quiet erosion of confidence in yourself, that slow dimming of the inner light that happened so gradually. You almost did not notice it until one day you looked for the certainty that used to be there and found something smaller and more fragile in its place. Maybe it is the loneliness of being a hope restorer in a season. Before anyone around you, you could see what you were carrying or why you were carrying it. Whatever that specific weight is, I want you to picture it now with as much concreteness as you can give it. Give it a shape if that helps. Give it a color or a texture. Let it be real and present in your imagination, not to dwell in it, but to be able to set it down accurately. And now I want you to picture the threshold we visited together in the last part of this message. The simple doorway between the road you have been on and the season that is opening. Picture yourself standing at that threshold again, but this time notice that there is space at the foot of the door frame, a place just at the edge where things can be left, and I want you to take whatever you have been holding and place it there. Not discard it carelessly, because it represents real years and real cost, and it deserves to be set down with the respect that earned weight deserves. But set it down. Let the threshold hold it. Let the doorframe be the boundary between what you carried in the wilderness and what you carry through into the new season. You do not need it on the other side. Everything it produced in you, the depth, the empathy, the capacity to sit with another person in the dark without flinching, the authority that comes from having been in the fire, all of that is already in you and comes with you automatically. The weight itself does not have to. The wilderness produced what it needed to produce, and the production is complete, and you are permitted to set the weight of it down at the door and walk through unburdened. Take a breath and let that be real. All across this world tonight, other chosen ones are walking into this exact same message. They are sitting in their own rooms, on their own beds, in their own cars pulled over on their own dark roads, holding their own specific weights and arriving at this same threshold in the same hour that you are arriving at yours. You are not alone in this crossing. You are part of a movement of chosen ones waking up simultaneously, all over the earth, in every language and every time zone, all recognizing themselves in the same words and all being released from the same kinds of weights at the same threshold. What is happening tonight is not a private event. It is a convergence, and you are in the middle of it. I want to pause here in this quiet space between the laying down and the stepping through, and say something to you that comes from the same place everything tonight has come from. Something real was built here, in the space between my voice and your heart, and it belongs to both of us now. If this message has meant something to you tonight, I want to invite you gently to press like, not as a favor to a channel, but as your way of saying something true without needing words, as a quiet signal that what happened here tonight was real and worth passing forward. And if you leave something in the comments, even a single word, you become part of something larger than your own. Threshold crossing, because the next one who finds this message and scrolls to the comments and sees your word there will know that they did not arrive alone, that someone was here before them and showed up for themselves and left a mark that said, I was here and I made it to the threshold. Share this with one person who is still in the thick of their waiting season, one person whose weight you know is heavy right now, as the simplest act of love a hope restorer can offer someone who has not yet been named. And if you feel something in you that wants to remain in this community of chosen ones who are waking up together, subscribing is simply the way of saying I choose to stay at the table, rather than passing through. And if you feel moved to pass something forward for the next soul who needs to find their way here, there is a place in the pinned comment where you can do that quietly, without pressure and without expectation, simply as one chosen one blessing the path for the one who is still finding their way to it. Now I want to close this part of the message the way I promised I would, with one final mention of something that has appeared at different points throughout this night, not as an obligation, but as an offering. If the genius wave met you somewhere in the middle of this message, in the part where we talked about the frequency that the wilderness suppressed and the neuroscience by find what makes chosen ones see and feel and sense the way they do. And if something in you recognized that what Dr. James Rivers built is not separate from what we have been talking about spiritually, but is actually the neurological support structure for exactly this kind of threshold crossing, then I want you to know that it is waiting for you in the pinned comment below. 7 minutes, a 90-day guarantee, $39 through the single verified link in the pinned comment and the description. If it is a yes in you, honor that yes. If you need more time, the link will be there. I am not going to rush you toward it. I simply did not want to release you from this message without placing it one final time gently in your hands, the way you would hand a trusted friend something useful before they began a long journey. Because that is what you are about to begin. A long journey into a new season, as a hope restorer carrying a depth that the wilderness produced and a frequency that is being restored, and a name that heaven assigned before you were born. And I want you to begin it with everything you need. The wait is at the threshold. The door is open. The light on the other side has your name in it. And in the final words of this message, I want to leave you not with more information, but with something quieter. Something you can carry in your pocket for the ordinary moments of the days ahead. For the Tuesday afternoons when the new season does not feel as vivid as it did tonight. For the moments when the old weight tries to find its way back to your hands. for the 3 in the morning hours that still come even for a hope restorer who has stood at the threshold and chosen to walk through. I want to leave you with a blessing, and I want to receive it fully before we close. You are not leaving this message the same way you arrived. I want you to know that. Not as a performance of what a closing is supposed to say, but as a true and specific observation about what has happened in the hours we have spent together. You arrived carrying a weight that had a particular shape and a particular history, and you have set it down at a threshold that is real, even if it is visible to the physical eye. You arrived with a name that the waiting season had been slowly rewriting in diminishing language, and you are leaving with the name that heaven assigned before any of the waiting began. Hope Restorer. Carry it plainly. You earned it in the only way that name can be earned, which is by going all the way through the thing that required it. I want to speak one final blessing over you before you go, and I want to speak it slowly, because blessings that are rushed do not land the way blessings that are given room to breathe can land. May the days ahead of you carry a lightness that the days behind you did not. Not the lightness of a life without weight, because a hope restorer will always carry something. That is the nature of the calling, but the lightness of a person who is finally carrying what belongs to them and has set down what does not. May the people who are meant to find you in this new season find you quickly and recognize you clearly, and may you recognize them in return, without the hesitation that the old season trained into you. May the clarity you have been waiting for arrive not all at once, but in exactly the measure you need, one step illuminated at a time, enough to move and enough to trust, sufficient for the journey even when it is not sufficient for the whole map. May the frequency that the wilderness years pressed down rise back to its original depth and then beyond it, fuller and more stable than it was before the hard years began. Because that is what restoration through fire produces. Not a return to what was, but an arrival at something stronger than what was. May every cycle that was running in your lineage before you find its ending in you, quietly, without drama, without requiring you to announce it or defend it or prove it to anyone who is not yet able to see what you have become. May the evidence simply appear in the fruit of your new season, visible to anyone with eyes trained to see what a hope restorer looks like when they have finally stepped through the threshold and begun to move. And may you know, in the ordinary moments of the ordinary days that are coming, the Tuesday afternoons and the early mornings and the quiet evenings when this night feels far away, may you know in those moments that you are held, that the one who placed the calling on your life before you were formed has not looked away from you for a single moment of the waiting season or the wilderness or the long road that brought you to this threshold, that the love which initiated the calling is the same, love that sustained you through the cost of it, and is the same love that is walking with you into everything that is opening on the other side of it. You are a chosen one. You are a hope restorer. You are standing in the light that has your name on it. Go well, go gently, and go with everything tonight placed in your hands.